Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm with my very old friend Alice Armstrong Scales, who is a personal development coach of really a brilliant coach with a huge international clientele of all sorts of exciting people. I can't tell you their names because then she'd have to shoot me. But really extraordinary person, and anybody who's been following this channel for a while will know that a year or a little bit over a year ago I did a day with Alice and it was totally transforming. And I know that you love hearing the stories of interesting women having interesting careers. So here is an interesting woman with an interesting career. Can you tell us how you became a personal development guru since you were a schoolgirl? Not very long, well, a while
A few years ago now. Yes, with great pleasure. I'd love to tell you my journey. And I'll try and cut a very long story short, not my forte, but I'll try.
It's a good story.
So I've always been very, very interested in human behaviour, and in those days I wouldn't have called it personal development because we didn't really know what that was all about. But I always was fascinated by what made people tick. Why did some people behave in one way and others in another way, etc., etc. And tiny little glimmer that I mentioned before. So when I was quite little, I think I was probably about 12, we used to go to a sweet shop in our village in Northumberland, and it normally sold, picture postcards. And suddenly it started having these bright colours of postcards with really inspirational quotes, and I'd never come across anything like that before. And when I had enough money, I would buy one or two and I'd stick them on my bedroom door, and I've probably still got them somewhere, but one that I always remember that I think my brothers and others would sort of laugh at a bit said, "If you always look to the sunshine, you'll never see the shadows." Anyway, that sort of stuck, and various other things along the way. But cutting forward now to when we met, which was in Paris in 1992. So I went to Paris for 6 months in 1992 and started teaching. Actually, I didn't go, I was teaching at a language school in London. Having been a Montessori teacher, that's where the whole sort of psychology.
Did you do a TEFL course? Or did you just...
Yes, so I was working, I did child psychology, and I was very, very interested in children and human psychology, and that's where I came across Maria Montessori. So I started training as a Montessori teacher. Well, I trained as a Montessori teacher, and I was working at a language school, at a Montessori school, sorry. Don't want to digress too much, in London. Loved that, but my cousin Polly and I decided that we wanted to travel around South America because we hadn't really had a gap year as such. So we trained in TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language, in order to sort of help us. Whenever we ran out of money, we stopped and taught, which was really exciting. And the joy for me, the joy of teaching adults who really wanted to learn, as opposed to, I love teaching children, but then you have to deal with the parents who, why isn't George on the same book as Henry? And you think, but teaching adults was this whole new world. Yeah. And I was very excited about that. So I went to Paris. I was working for a language school in London, went to Paris for 6 months to improve my French, to do marketing for the business English courses in London, and loved Paris. And I went to the Alliance Française and improved my French and met Georgie, and we had an amazing time. But I really missed teaching. I love teaching, I think, as you know by now, but I really missed it. And one day I went to the British Institute and I saw all these teachers at the desks, in the library, preparing their lessons and using some of my favourite books that I'd used in London, Headway Intermediate by John and Liz Sawes, and English Grammar in Use by Raymond Murphy. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. But I literally had a sort of physical, so I sat down and was sort of familiarising myself with my old books, and did have that I need to be teaching moment. Yeah. As I walked out of the British Institute, I saw an advert on a yellow card that said, English teacher required for 1 month in June, must enjoy swimming and tennis, ring Dr. Macquin. So obviously no mobiles or anything in those days. So went back home, rang Dr. Macquin, who's a wonderful 65-year-old doctor who worked for the European Commission, and I got the job. And so I worked with him, and that was just amazing and totally tailored from all my books that I used to carry around with me, tailored this program for him, and that was fantastic. And he was lovely. And then at the same time, I started teaching director of a design agency, Francis Metzler. And then I said, listen, it's been lovely, but in 2 weeks, I'm heading back to London because that's finished. And they both said, oh, Alice, don't go back to England. Set up your own school here. We need you. Our companies need you. And I was thinking, set up a business. I don't know anything about business. I know I can teach, and then I thought, well, if I go back to England and same old school, I'll always be wondering what would have happened if I'd stayed in Paris. And if I stay in Paris and it all goes pear-shaped, I'll just go back to England. So I set up, basically, cutting a long story a bit shorter. I set it up, and these two guys were like sort of godfathers, true to their word. Word spread very quickly. It was all word of mouth. Oh, and because I used to do a lot of voluntary work at the Franco-British Chamber of Commerce, I had sort of instant access to lots of French executives who needed business English. So I would work with them teaching to deliver presentations, to negotiate, and even to socialise in English. Do you remember I'd take them back to England?
You'd give them dinner parties?
And I'd organise dinner parties to practice. And one guy wanted to go to Henley, so we did that. I mean, it was extraordinary. Amazing. And I'd basically get to see all my favourite shows at the West End.
Tell me the story of how you suddenly thought,
yes,
NLP.
So, I had been working for about 2 years with they were very top CEOs, leaders, and all sorts of people. And I began to realise that actually they needed something much more psychological than help with their English. Yeah. And it came to a head. I was working with a lot of them doing very, very in-depth presentations, and they would have these amazing presentations. And then when it came to the moment of delivering it, sometimes I was sitting at the back of the conference room, they would bottle up and completely lose the plot. I mean, they lost the plot, or they'd hand it over to a junior because they would rather say nothing than say something and make a mistake and then be judged. So I realised they needed something much more, as I say, much more psychological. So I did some research and looked into NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and trained in Paris in that as a general practitioner, and came back with all these new tools and things and tried them with these clients. And I could see the results straight away.
Oh,
it was incredible. It was so rewarding to see that it really does work. And, just being able to get rid of their limiting beliefs and that voice in their head, vous êtes nul. So I then went on to train as a master practitioner and became a bit of a evangelical.
You were evangelistic about it, but not in a bad way. You were
not
amazing.
In a bad way. And I practiced on all my friends. I practiced on as many people that would sort of sit still long enough.
I did NLP down the phone to Paris. You were in Paris, I was in Somerset.
That's right. And you were writing a book.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then in 2015, I met my husband in Paris and had 3 children. And then we moved back to England in 2015. And then Armstrong Languages, that was the end of that. I set up Armstrong Scales Coaching because in the meantime, because I think this is sort of relevant.
I think it's very important.
In 2011, so my 3 children were very little. My husband was working a lot abroad. I was running all sorts of different seminars and doing lots of other things for other organisations.
You spread very, very thin.
I was spread very, very thin, and I had a year of chronic stress and just overwhelm. And in that way that I think we were talking earlier about, the way we were brought up is that you you just got busy and you volunteered and you did your work, but you also did lots of charity stuff and you said yes to everything.
And you never had a headache.
And you never
had a bad
you were a Duracell bunny, and you never questioned saying no. No idea of boundaries.
If somebody asked you to do something, clearly they thought you could. So who were you to say no?
Yes, and I was quite a people pleaser as well. Let's face it. So having done that, suddenly I was being
You were hospitalised.
I was being pulled in every direction, and I kept getting these little twinges and little sort of messages from my body to possibly suggest I should slow down a bit. But I ignored them, and I thought I'll just crack on till summer holidays.
Took a Nurofen and carried on.
Yeah, no, literally. And one more coffee in the morning and possibly a glass of wine at night to sort of, and even though one day I was organising this big charity ball, I even found myself having Red Bull.
Oh,
can you imagine? Anyway, at that stage, I just thought, crack on till June would be fine. Anyway, it all came to a head because I kept ignoring it. And one day I literally couldn't walk and my adrenal system had completely collapsed. And I had le burnout, as the French doctors said. And I then developed an autoimmune disease and was on steroids for 4 years.
It's a really long time.
It was really long. And had I known even a tenth of what I know now in terms of personal development, all the tools and techniques to be able to manage stress, it would never have happened. So it's just, I'm just sharing that because it is a lesson that, you think you must crack on, you haven't got time to sharpen the saw. The story about the woodman, far too busy to sharpen the saw, and then everything takes a long time. Had I stopped for a minute and done a few things, I would have got 4 years back. I had to stop. I had to take a forced sabbatical for 4 years.
It's a long haul.
Can you believe it? So that's one thing that's really made me very passionate about what I do now, is because I want to help other people, because I see it a lot, other people from falling down that same sort of rabbit hole that I went down.
So you moved back to the UK.
Moved back to the UK. During the 4 years of recovery, I did a lot of reading and a lot of personal development. And I did emotional intelligence and positive psychology.
You're such a learner. This is a living example of why you just don't stop learning. Just keep interested, keep reading.
Yeah, keep reading, keep growing, keep learning. And I mean, if it's something you're interested in, and I'm sort of slightly obsessedly interested in neuroscience and all that sort of thing, because I've seen that I am the living proof that it works. And changing your mindset to believe in yourself, and also to believe that self-care is not selfish. I think the way that some of us were brought up, and because the generations before that as well, is that spending time on yourself, it's a little bit selfish when you could be doing everything for everyone else.
Exactly. But if you don't,
look what happens to you. So I learned the hard way and was literally no good to anyone. I had to stop work. I couldn't take the children to school. I mean, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I made it my mission then to get better, get off the steroids, do everything I could to manage my mindset, and then to be able to weave it in with the NLP and bring in other sorts of coaching as well. So generative coaching, so that I can help others to not only avoid all that sort of thing, but to really believe in themselves and be able to, unlock their true potential.
I think you are amazing because you're multidisciplinary. That's what they call it, isn't
is that what this is?
You're a multidisciplinary
Sounds
teacher.
a bit bossy.
Well, no, in a great...
Yes.
But it means I don't know very many coaches who have... every time you come across something that's interesting, you go and train in it. You go and learn the whole thing. You go and really immerse yourself in the whole thing. But you keep the NLP comes with you. All the other things that you've worked on before come with you, and you have this extraordinary
toolkit,
bank of knowledge that you can draw on.
Well, I love that, and I love working with people because you do tailor things. You might have something set out, thinking, right, this is how today's going to go. So, like doing an immersive retreat day like this, and then someone might say something. I think, what you need is a little bit of high performance coaching, or a little bit of generative
And you can
coaching
bring
or
it all
emotional
in. It's
intelligence,
amazing.
and so I love it. So that sort of brings me to where I am today, and it's the most rewarding job in the world, I have to say.
Well, if anybody's ever interested, I mean, Alice, the coaching sessions, you've got a website, it's all there, but I think there's something else in development, because we wouldn't stand still, would we? What's in development, Alice?
So what's in development? Over the last few years, I have been finding it quite challenging, finding enough time to help all the people that ask, and not sort of help is the right word, but work with. And I think more and more we're all so busy that having an hour's session once a week, it helps every now and again if you're building towards something. But actually, doing workshops, doing these sort of retreats really helps. But to have something that's literally in your pocket, that when you need it, you have instant access to the resources, to me explaining what it is. So cut a long story short, trying again, I am developing an app, which I'm very excited about. And it's called Thrive with Alice. And I'm very much hoping it will come out in February or March. And it will have all sorts of exciting things and golden nuggets.
Well, I think what's really brilliant is, I think all of us need to do this. You have to acknowledge what you're good at. Alice is good at a lot of very good personal development type stuff. Acknowledge what you're good at, but step out of your comfort zone and find a new way of using that knowledge for the common good, which is basically what you're doing.
Well, let's hope so. And also acknowledging what you're good at, acknowledging what you need help with. So I've just engaged an assistant, which is very exciting, a personal development assistant, a personal virtual assistant who's going to help me with that, which suddenly will free up my time. And that's another thing about recognizing what you're good at. Keep going with that. There are certain things that you might not be good at. We can't all be good at everything. So delegate.
Outsource
And delegate.
Yeah.
Do, delegate or ditch. Go through your...
delegate or ditch.
Go through the list of all your things. Identify those energy drains, particularly. Delegate
Ditch them.
or ditch.
We've just had the most incredible morning. So from time to time, Alice and I have a little session, don't we? Over the years, we've done this. And last year, I think I must have been kind of super receptive. If you look back through my playlist, you'll see a clip I made after I was here in this very room a year ago, and there were a group of about 6 of us and you, and it was just light bulb after light bulb after light bulb. And often your coaching you're not remaking the wheel. You're just saying, is that really useful? And you say, no, it's not terribly. Okay, well, we'll ditch that. And instead of just that was the gift, was you said, don't let that time, I ditched reading newspapers. Don't let that time just be absorbed into your day. Use that time as a structure to do something else. And I have for the year
And do something else that's for you.
Yeah.
Like the miracle morning.
Like the miracle morning. So Hal Elrod is a great man in your
He's
firmament.
Yes, he is. Hal Elrod, Brendan Burchard, Jay Shetty. I could name so
Loads of them.
So many. But no, I honestly, doing the miracle morning, and that's one thing that has really, I'm still very busy, as we both are, but I carve out at least half an hour and sometimes more every morning to do my miracle morning. And we can talk about that another time because people probably want to stop at this stage. But honestly, carving out, or even just every morning doing some calm breathing, set your intention for the day. How can I show up today? Even if it's a day full of things you don't want to do, how can I show up as my best self? What does my best self even look like? What are my values? Yeah. How can I live in alignment with them today? Ask those questions.
And don't be afraid of the question. Sometimes those questions are quite scary.
Yes.
Who am I?
Well, yeah. But what really, really matters? How do I want to be remembered? But I won't go into all that now. But what I will just share before we finish is an affirmation that I was sharing with you before. We talked about some people think that self-care is a bit selfish. And I do a lot of affirmations. But one affirmation that I do that's really helped me is to say, I am unique and irreplaceable. We all are. I am unique and irreplaceable. Therefore, I owe it to my family and those who love me and those who count on me to look after myself. And that for me has been really powerful, because it's like, what use am I if I'm not here tomorrow, or so we owe it, not just to ourselves, we owe it to those who count on us, those who love us, to look after ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Oh, Alice, I think you are such an inspiration. I hope you've really enjoyed this clip, and we will be definitely back again in a year or so to see how we're going.
That's lovely. Can't wait to see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Bye.